The review scores for Dragon's Dogma 2 are already out, and the game has done tremendously well. Everybody loves it, the game is a ton of fun, and I cannot wait for you guys to have a blast with it as well, though some of these reviews do point out a few negatives, which we'll talk about in a moment. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Dragon's Dogma 2 video. Today I want to talk about some of my experience having played over 50 hours of Dragon's Dogma 2, talking about my favorite vocations to play, what my experience has been with the game, and some other things that I didn't outright mention in my review. I am currently working on making some guides for you guys, but since Capcom only wants us to make those videos once the game releases, today I just want to have a more chill talk about the game, because there was a lot more that I wanted to say. So to start things off, it feels like an actual dream to play Dragon's Dogma 2. I really did not expect us to get a sequel, especially one with the quality and attention that this one has. That being said, it does have a few problems, but we'll get in there in a little bit. So I've been playing all sorts of vocations. Most of the gameplay that you have seen from me is probably using the Mystic Spearhand, the Thief, or maybe even the Trickster, since those are the vocations that I have been enjoying the most. Coming into Dragon's Dogma 2, Mystic Spearhand was the one that I was the most excited about, and I am very glad to say that it works fantastic. I would even go as far as to say that it is my current favorite vocation, as not only are you able to combine your physical strength but also your magic stat, so you can try to make a build that focuses on raising both of those stats, which I think is very cool and very unique. I also love the aspect of being able to fight at close range, all the while having ranged projectiles and the ability to teleport to the enemy. And on top of that, you can place a shield on yourself that will also affect your allies if they are nearby, which I think might be a little too broken given how you can spam it, as it doesn't consume a lot of stamina and it stays active for a very long time. It's just a vocation that feels very nice to play, and fits into pretty much every single combat scenario that you may encounter, which is something that I cannot say about some of these vocations. Now the Trickster is a little bit of an odd case. It actually took me some time to fully grasp how you were supposed to play this vocation, but once it finally clicked for me, I really fell in love with it. You're able to essentially play like a commander, buffing your allies and taunting and distracting the enemies, while also using terrain to your advantage. It's a completely different combat style compared to anything else that is present in the game, and frankly the only issue that I see with the Trickster is that you yourself do not do any damage, so you are entirely reliant on your pawns. This is okay for 99% of the scenarios, but there are some moments in the game where the game outright tells you that you need to 1v1 someone, and with all of your attacks dealing no damage, at least the ones that I have unlocked so far, and I am at vocation rank 8 I believe, so I'm very close to getting all of the skills for the Trickster. In those scenarios you are left with pretty much nothing you can do. And also, the initial gameplay experience of the Trickster kind of sucks, because you unlock this vocation in a somewhat late game area, and if you were to do some combat in that location, you won't even have the skill that allows you to buff their damage. All you can really do is use your Spirit Echo and taunt the enemies with it, which honestly felt kinda lame for the beginning, but as soon as I got some vocation ranks and went to get some more skills, it felt a lot more fun to play. And as for the Thief, that was the first vocation that I maxed out, and I love it. I was already a huge fan of the Strider and the Assassin in Dragon's Dogma 1, and with the Thief being essentially a combination of those two, it just felt like a natural choice for me as the starter vocation. And given that the Thief augment that you get at max rank increases the strength of your character, it's an augment that I would like to unlock as early as possible. But pretty much all of the Thief skills are very fun to use, and very early on into my playthrough I came across the Thief Meister that taught me a couple of very powerful skills that have honestly turned the Thief into an incredible powerhouse. Seriously, the damage output that I can get from it is insane, and with these skills in particular I am able to essentially remain invincible as long as I have stamina. I'm going to be talking about all of the different vocations a lot more in depth once the game actually releases, so if there is a vocation that you would like me to focus on, let me know in the comment section below. The only one that I have yet to unlock is the Warfarer, although at this point I do believe I know how I can get it. That being said, I think I should also talk about the progression of Dragon's Dogma 2 and how I have personally been playing the game. Because looking at some of the reviews for the game, it seems as though most YouTubers just focus on trying to beat the game as fast as possible, and only then did they try to start doing some side content. Personally, I'm quite the opposite. The moment that I got to the big town and got all of the plot revealed to me, I turned my back away and started exploring the map and doing all sorts of side quests. And that is where I believe the beauty of Dragon's Dogma 2 lies in, as the first game, despite having a pretty decently sized open world, did not incentivize you to go out and explore it. A lot of the areas that you would find and reach would likely be closed and saved off for a story moment, or they would simply have nothing there. The Griffin's Colosseum comes to mind, for example. If you start the game and go there from the very beginning, there is absolutely nothing there. Whereas in Dragon's Dogma 2, apart from certain key areas, you can go out and explore as much as you want, and there is a lot of very cool and awesome content for you to do. I was just looking out for any hidden secrets, and I happened to stumble upon the Sphinx and many other cool secrets. And so, because of the approach that I took with Dragon's Dogma 2, I feel like some of the complaints that I have heard from other reviewers don't really ring with me, because a lot of them were complaining about you having to travel from one place to the next to progress the main story. Well, I was doing that naturally, so I found a lot of fairy stones and port crystals, so I was able to set up a few teleport locations that I could then later on use to make travel a lot easier for me. And also a complaint that I have seen a lot, which I do believe is quite fair, is the lack of enemy diversity. Quite frankly, I agree with it, because most of my playtime in Dragon's Dogma 2, I have barely seen any new enemies that were not present in the original game. And the enemies you come across are all pretty much the same up until you reach the endgame, which I won't talk about here in this video because it is a big deal. Personally, I didn't mind not having a big cast of enemies to defeat, but I could totally understand how some people felt that way. I do feel like one change that they have made in the sequel that I am not especially fond of is the removal of the second set of skills for each of the different vocations. So now you essentially just end up with less active skills, although you get a unique action with each different vocation. Some of these are actually quite cool, like the Mystic Spearhand or the Trickster, whereas some others are very simple and feel like a waste of a button, like the case of the Thief. Ultimately, that's just a nitpick, and another nitpick that I have with the game is kind of how you control the character. So between my play sessions of Dragon's Dogma 2, before I released my review, I actually went back and played a little bit of Dragon's Dogma 1 because I wanted to include a couple of clips for a video. And the moment that I started playing Dragon's Dogma 1, I noticed that the characters felt a lot snappier and just a lot more natural to control. I don't really know exactly how to explain it. I do believe it is because in Dragon's Dogma 2 your character kind of collides with a lot of things, and because they try to make their movement a lot more realistic, it doesn't have that instant snappy movement that the original has. And one thing that I didn't touch on in my review is the new feature of being able to set up a camp at designated locations where you are able to talk to your pawns and cook a piece of meat to get some buffs. It's a very simple system that makes the game feel a lot more grounded, while at the same time letting the game be more punishing, as you have another way to be able to recuperate the loss of your max health. And another thing about Dragon's Dogma 2 that I'm not the biggest fan of is the lack of difficulty. In the original, if you felt like the game was too easy, you could simply put the hard difficulty, so you would have a little bit more of a challenge. In the sequel, there is no such thing, and the way that the game is balanced, I feel like it is made so that you are going to feel a little bit oppressed during the beginning hours of the game, especially when you don't have powerful offensive skills or skills that give you iframes to avoid attacks. But the moment that you get your hands on them, the game becomes 10 times easier. It's like you're breaking the game all of a sudden, and from that point onwards the game rarely feels challenging or difficult. And as a result, you will never have to spend any of your wake stones, which becomes a snowball effect, because if all of a sudden the game is to become difficult and one-shot you, you will have a surplus of wake stones because you didn't use them before, and so you can negate that challenge entirely. Again, keep in mind that this is pretty much just a nitpick. I still love the game very much, and I'm not someone to give ratings to games, but from everything that I have played and will continue to play, I would honestly give Dragon's Dogma 2 at the very least a 9 if not a 10. I still want to spend some time in the endgame to better organize my thoughts and how I feel about the game, but I can honestly say that I have had a blast playing this game, and it feels like the natural evolution of Dragon's Dogma. If anything, I would go as far as to say that the game doesn't innovate quite enough. I would like it to take a few more risks here and there to make it feel more distinct from the original game. Everything that they did about the quests and how they expanded them and all of the characters that come with them feel very nice to interact with, but in terms of the actual gameplay, there's not a huge change between Dragon's Dogma 1 and Dragon's Dogma 2. But these are my extended thoughts on Dragon's Dogma 2. Let me know how you guys feel about all of this, and how excited are you to jump into the game very soon. You can expect to see a lot more content from me about this game, and I will be going back to the main YouTube channel and making some meme edits about this game as well. That's how much I love it. But with all of that said, thank you all so much for watching. My name is Dark Hero, and as always, happy hunting!